Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Fox with WESH 2 News and WESH.com, and this is another in our series of debates leading up to the November general election. Of course, we want every voter to be informed on the candidates and the various races that are involved in their areas in Central Florida. Right now, we're talking to the contenders in the State House District 39 race, which covers Northwest Orange County and a portion of West Seminole County. And the candidates are Republican Doug Bankson and Democrat Tiffany Hughes. Thank you both for joining us, and congratulations to you, Mr. Bankson, on winning your primary in August. First, I'll give you each 1 minute to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you believe the voters in District 39 should pick you. And we'll begin with Mr. Bankson. Go ahead, 1 minute.
All right, thanks, Greg. And it's great to be on to get to bring our message to the people. My name is Doug Bankson, running for House District 39. And I have a philosophy of life and liberty. It's very simple. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're given by their creator their rights. And so it doesn't come from government. I believe in small government, and that the underpinnings of the pursuit of happiness are to have life and liberty. My foundation is, of course, the Constitution and what it stands for. It secures our faith, family, and freedom, the opportunity to believe or the privilege to not believe as you choose. The foundation of the family is so important, and having our freedom is absolutely ultimate. That's who we are as Americans. And finally, having my focus, I really want to focus on common sense issues that people face every day. Of course, we've got the economy that everybody's feeling. We have education that's very important. We have the energy needs that we're facing right now, and our environment. So these are just 4 areas, but key areas that I think affect the everyday American. And so I plan to bring common sense solutions for those issues.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Hughes, tell us about yourself.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. My name is Tiffany Hughes, candidate for Florida House District 39. I'm a wife, a mom, a business owner, and the daughter of 2 immigrant parents from the beautiful island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You know, I like to say my parents found the promise of America, really watching my dad, who is an accountant and a business owner, and my mom, who works in healthcare, strive to achieve their American dream, taught me the importance of determination, diving into new opportunities, working hard to succeed. And that's exactly what my husband and I did 7 years ago when we opened our own business, a staffing firm where we economically empower our community by connecting people to good paying jobs right here at home. I'm a public servant. I've worked with our elected officials for many years. I have co-chaired a city board. I currently co-chair our Orange County board, and I've served as the immediate past president of our Orange County NAACP, the youngest to lead in our branch's 93-year history. And I'm running because I believe that the only way that we really solve the pressing issues of our state, like housing affordability, like bringing good paying jobs to our community, is by doing it together. And that's exactly what our campaign is all about. It is moving our community forward without leaving anyone behind. So thank you. And I look forward to sharing more with you, Greg, and certainly with the voters at home.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get right to it. You know, we learn a lot about our elected leaders and their priorities by the kinds of bills they file. And I like to begin this way. I want to find out, what is the very first bill? I know you probably have a lot of priorities, but the first bill you would file if you're elected. Ms. Hughes, we'll stick with you.
Greg, you are so right. There are a lot of priorities. And when I think about the issues facing Floridians today, the fact is we are in a housing crisis. I think about everyday Floridians, our friends, my neighbors, getting priced out of their homes because of the rising cost of homeowners insurance. And the legislature had an entire session to solve this issue. And what we saw was a bill passed that helped insurance companies and used taxpayer dollars, but left real people behind, left families still struggling to pay their homeowners insurance. And I'd really like to take that bill a step further and ensure that insurance companies that are accessing those funds pass the savings on to homeowners. Homeowners don't need solutions later. We need solutions to the problems now. And that's going to be my focus in Tallahassee.
Mr. Bankson, I want to get to your first bill that you would file, but since Ms. Hughes obviously has been looking at my notes over my shoulder, I have to turn around like that. I want to stick on the housing issue for a second, and then we'll go back to your priority bill to file. She mentioned something very important here. We're looking at trying to create some savings in the property insurance market. She's suggesting that that savings should be passed on in lowering or at least capping rents. And we know Orange County is talking about a potential rent cap. So what is your solution to affordability in the rental housing market?
Well, again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is for Mr. Bankson.
Sorry.
Yeah, again, that is a key issue, and we see that happening all around the state, and of course, right here locally. For us, for me, I believe that, again, that is a key issue to deal with the insurance crisis that we're facing. But I really see the majority of that happening on the litigation side. I think we've got to address and deal with that. We've got to get all three players, whether it be them, whether we have the insurance company or also the roofing industry, these different ones that are the key players that are driving these prices. And I know that there are many insurance companies that are literally going under. We actually had to reinsure because our company couldn't remain solvent. And the state citizens account was not intended to be that which is the catch-all. So as we go that direction, we've got to address the litigation. That's key. And I think to work together for housing, we have to work with the local communities as well. I believe in incentivizing these things. Having worked in the city of Apopka for 6 years as a city commissioner, bringing incentives to get builders to work together to bring affordable housing is one way that everybody can prosper and profit, and to make sure that we get those the prices coming down. But we've got to deal with the bigger issues of our economy. And at that point, of course, we lost 800 points in our Dow yesterday. We're seeing the increase just literally to, my wife went to buy a loaf of bread, raisin bread, $8 for one loaf of bread. And so as we address these issues, everybody's feeling these needs, and we need to make sure to bring those issues down.
All right, and getting back on track, what is the first bill you will file, Mr. Hughes?
Mr. Bankson?
Mr. Bankson.
Yes. Yeah, well, she must be looking over my shoulder as well, because
sorry about that.
That is key. And it's good to know that, again, we do need to focus together. We do need to look together as a state and as a people. And right now, that is a crisis. I know that word is tossed around a lot politically, but with what is happening with our insurance industry, if they literally doubled everyone's rates overnight, it's still not enough. They're putting out between 120 to 200% of what is being taken in. And so if we don't stop, again, the massive litigation, we are at 80% compared to the rest of the nation, which is more at 20% when it comes to the litigation with housing and with insurance. So we've got to sit down together. If we don't, again, nobody wins in the long run. So that is definitely something I want to focus on.
All right, and that's something that we'll be talking about in, I'm sure, a number of our debates this year. I want to change gears for a second here. One of the bills signed into law this year is what the governor calls the Stop Woke Act. It bars, excuse me, it bars certain teaching about race and diversity in schools and could force some businesses to change the way they do their diversity training programs. A judge in August ruled it unconstitutional. But again, this is going to be debated in the courts as well. Do you support or oppose this law, and why, Mr. Bankson?
Yes, I support it, because we've got to get our education system back to teaching. Our teachers are caught in the middle. There are certain things that belong to the parents and they need to focus on. I'm very strong. The party of Lincoln, the party of Frederick Douglass, that's something that attracted me, because that's been a passion since I grew up born in the 60s, in the 70s, seeing these things firsthand and remembering how it impacted me. My first memory was when Bobby Kennedy passed away. And I remember talking to my mother about that and what's happening in our nation. And we talked about how that everyone is created equal. We have to fight for that, but there's a parsing of words. And the bottom line is we have to make sure that education is about math, reading, English, science, STEM programs, opportunities for children to find their own unique path that best suits them. That's the key to see our education system going forward, and not to bring in controversial issues, fringe issues, or those which really are social experimentations. We need to make sure that we have liberty and freedom for all.
All right. And I would encourage, so we can get through as many questions as possible, if we can try to keep our answers to a minute or less. Ms. Hughes, on the Stop Woke Act.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm against the Stop Woke Act. It's a clear attack on our First Amendment rights, and I support its immediate repeal. But I want to be clear here. The Stop Woke Act is another culture war issue that the leadership in Tallahassee has used to distract from the very real issues that Floridians are facing. We're talking about, we're in a housing crisis. We started our school year with a 9,000 person teacher shortage. We have a lack of good paying jobs. We have an attack on women's reproductive rights. Those are the issues I will be focused on in Tallahassee, not the endless culture wars.
The Parental Rights in Education bill, branded the Don't Say Gay law by critics, restricts the teaching of gender identity and sexual orientation in grades K through 3. This is also being challenged in court. Do you support or oppose this measure, and why? Ms. Hughes.
Greg, this is another one I strongly oppose. Clear attack on our LGBTQ community, really putting the pressure on our teachers when we should be supporting the very people that educate our children. We have to really stop these culture war propaganda that is happening in our state legislature and focus on issues that are actually affecting Floridians.
All right, Mr. Bankson.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. And again, sometimes we want to reach the same goal, but we're using different paths to get there. This is about protecting children and what's appropriate for them, age level appropriate issues, and letting the parents make those decisions. You have parents, everyone can have their viewpoints, everyone can have their liberty, but these are issues that need to be left to parents to decide and not interjected in, especially from kindergarten to third grade. They don't need to be focusing on those things. They need to be developing their motor skills. They need really developing their reading skills. And this doesn't have to be something that I believe we need to stop the bullying. We've done well up to this point in dealing with that issue. Let people be who they are and respect everyone. Everyone deserves equal respect. But when we're bringing in these specific agendas that are crossing over into the parental issues, and many parents are very, very concerned about this, we need to make sure that we're teaching again in schools and letting our teachers not be caught in the middle of that, but letting them focus on education.
As we're recording this debate, the Senate Republicans, including Marco Rubio as a co-sponsor, have filed for a 15-week abortion ban. And as you know, right now, Florida's new 15-week abortion ban is in effect. A judge has ruled that unconstitutional, and that's headed to the state Supreme Court. But if elected, in what week would you specifically support termination of pregnancy, and under exactly what circumstances? And please be specific about cases involving rape, incest, and threat to a woman's life and health. Mr. Bankson.
Well, again, that's an issue that right now we have Roe v. Wade that was overturned, and a very interesting way how it was approached, because at that time they said we cannot prove by scientific measure when life begins. And so we have to look at the privacy issue. I'm all about privacy, but the crux of the issue is the personhood. And so because that debate is still ongoing in the public, because here in Florida, we have the, I believe it's Mens Rea TW Act that we have to deal with before we can even get to that point. So I do support what the governor has put forward at the 15 weeks. To me, we're moving in the right direction. I am pro-life, and I believe that we need to protect life at every level.
Okay, so before I go to Ms. Hughes, again, please clarify cases of rape, incest, threat to the woman's life. Where do you stand there, Mr. Bankson?
Again, we need to protect everyone. We need to protect the women. We can do this in a compassionate way, and there are many ways to provide a different option for these situations. And so the bottom line is I'm going to stand pro-life. And as this debate begins to move forward in the public and we see where everyone stands, then we can continue to address that issue forward.
Okay, so how about in a case of rape? Is termination of pregnancy okay with you?
Again, for me, the issue is life, and we have to address, is that a life? And it changes.
So that's a no.
It changes the focus. So we either address that's either a life or it's not. And until we can address that in the public forum, then we really can't get beyond those issues. So
okay, but this, and I don't mean to go on here, but this is a public forum. So if rape and incest are a circumstance, is that okay with you? Termination of pregnancy, or not at all?
I think we need to be stronger concerning rape. I think it's one of the most heinous crimes that there is. It's an absolute violation, but you have two victims, and so we have to address that issue. Again, I stand for life.
I'm going to call those a no at this point, unless you clarify. So that sounds like a no. Ms. Hughes.
You know, Greg, if you've ever been in the room with me, I have a 2-year-old son. His name is Legacy. I talk about him all the time. What I don't talk about often is a year before I had him, I had fibroid surgery. And what that meant for me is when I got pregnant, that my pregnancy was high risk. And when it is high risk, you have to have some very difficult conversations with your doctors and your family about what this means for you. And I thank God that Legacy's here and he's healthy and he's strong and I'm here to raise him, but it makes this issue very personal for me. So when we talk about abortion, we are talking about life-saving healthcare. And one of the most personal decisions a woman can make, and that decision must be kept between that woman, her family, her doctor, her faith, and not politicians and Tallahassee. And I think this is a very clear distinction between my opponent and I. Just by this conversation, it is clear that my opponent is in favor of a total abortion ban with zero exception for rape, incest, and a mother's life, and that life could have been mine. So as a state legislator, I will always protect a woman's right to access life-saving reproductive health care. And to your immediate question, Greg, I really think that we need to leave those decisions to a woman, her family, and her doctor. As it relates to any abortions, any abortions at all. We know that most abortions occur before 21 weeks, and when they do occur later in a pregnancy is often under very complex circumstances that could have been my circumstance, and the kind of situations where that patient needs every option on the table.
Okay, since you brought up Mr. Bankson, you've got 45 seconds.
Yeah, and so again, to qualify that and clarify that, obviously, if life is at stake, we must save life. The key is we need to try and save both lives. That's not always possible. I was with my grandmother just this last week, who just turned 104 in July, a lifelong educator. And she shared a story with me that I had never known, that when she was about to give birth, the doctors came and said that there's trouble, there are issues. It's either you or the baby. You have to choose. And of course, she said, save the baby. And thankfully, she was saved as well. And here she is 104 years later. It's about a culture of life to me. And those issues, it's not about stealing the rights from someone. We don't have a right to kill a child after they're born. So once that issue is decided, we can't say this was an economic issue after they're born, therefore I can get rid of them. We don't do that. And so to say that that's just simply between a woman and the doctor, we couldn't do that afterwards. So why are we doing that when that's a child in the womb? And so that's why that is the key issue. We have to establish that. And as a society, be able to have that conversation together. I've had it many times with people on the other side of the aisle and really had a place where we came to a mutual agreement. Okay.
All right, we're going to move on. Recently, we've been seeing some comments from Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. For example, he says, we need to defend against the left with the full armor of God. And this is part of a larger Christian nationalism movement and conversation that critics, including Jewish and other religious leaders, have condemned, saying it inspires hate and violence. Mr. Bankson, you are also a pastor, a minister. Do you support this kind of movement, and are you concerned at all that it might inspire people to be violent?
Well, I think it's very dangerous when certain terminology is put upon something to basically classify it in a certain mindset. We talk about homophobia. Well, I believe there's a Christophobia, if we can use that term. I believe that obviously our founding principles are Christian principles. And so to take a statement out of context like that and qualify it as a Christian nationalism, I think that's a dangerous issue. Those things were done back in World War II. Those things were utilized, back in with Germany, and there was a crossover, and you were either one of that brand or you went along with what the government wanted you to do. And in the end, everyone failed, and all the liberties were lost. So I think it's very dangerous to take and put a label on someone. We wouldn't do that in other places, and we shouldn't do it here.
Okay, Ms. Hughes, on the governor's comments, defending against the left with the full armor of God. Do you think that inspires violence or hate?
Greg, I think it certainly can. And I want to say, I like to say that I am in deep relationship with God. I prayed before this interview here today. But what we can't do is push our religious views on our community. Certainly as a leader, I will not be asking constituents what religion you are when I legislate on their behalf, when I represent their views in Tallahassee. And so we want to lead with who the community is, how we represent their voice, no matter what their religious preferences are. And that's how I really intend to walk into Tallahassee, making sure that where my religious views stand never interfere with how I lead and represent my community's voice.
All right, let's talk about gun violence, gun control laws, how we address gun violence in general. The state of Florida, as you know, in 2018, after the Parkland massacre, had passed a series of laws that raised the age for purchasing a long gun to the age of 21 from 18. It also included red flag laws that have been used more than 8,000 times in the state of Florida to remove weapons from homes from individuals who may be a threat to themselves or others. Do you support this? Would you go farther? Would you repeal any provisions of them? Ms. Hughes.
You know, Greg, as a mom, I talk about my son a lot. Of a school-age child, I think about this issue a lot. We in Central Florida have seen the horrific effects of gun violence. And I would say, as a gun owner myself, I know that we can protect the right to bear arms while also keeping firearms out of the hands of violent criminals. And I know we can do this because we've already done it in Florida. As you mentioned, after the Parkland shooting, we passed a red flag law. We expanded background checks. We raised the age to purchase a firearm to 21. And I absolutely support these measures. And again, I think this is a really important distinction between my opponent and I, because despite the fact that these laws have already saved lives, my opponent is in favor of repealing them. As a mom, as a parent, we deserve to be able to drop our children off to school in the morning and know that we'll be able to pick them up at the end of the day. That is what I will be fighting for in Tallahassee.
All right, Mr. Banks, and you get an extra 45 seconds on your minute, courtesy of Ms. Hughes. Go ahead.
All right, and I do want to catch just on the tail end of the last question, just to clarify, this Christian nation is the only one of the religions that allows you, permits you, and protects your right to believe or not to believe, to have all freedom of religion. So again, qualifying those statements as forcing religion upon someone, I've never done that because it doesn't even work as a Christian. But moving on to this issue, I think this is one of those things that, again, when there's emotion involved, sometimes reason goes by the wayside. And the bottom line is, I think for all of us here, we would all say, we want people to be protected. We want our children protected in their schools. We all would agree. So again, diverging on how does that happen? The bottom line is, where we have the most liberties, we have the most safety, we have the most not only freedom, but freedom from the most severe of gun violence. Now, we have that everywhere. You can't stop human nature. So, we have to address those things. But where these laws are the strictest, we have the highest level of gun violence. Where people have the right to protect themselves in a reasonable manner, we have the lowest level of gun violence. And so based upon that, we have to make sure that we're doing the thing that truly protects people. Being armed as a citizen, as as my opponent said that she is there, that's wonderful, but we can't take away the liberties of those who are wanting to become gun owners. We need to make sure to protect those, and there are just certain laws that would undermine the ability to have privacy. If you look at what happened in Australia, these laws were stair steps to ending up undermining people's personal liberty. And our Second Amendment it should remain inviolate. So we can do this with common sense. No one wants guns in the hands of criminals, but the best way to do that is an armed public that is understandable, is trained in these things.
So to wrap up this discussion, are you okay in your church if people are armed?
We have, again, those who do protect the flock. Yes, there's the biggest issue, and this is you can find this.
Well, what I mean is, if I come to a service at your church and I have a concealed carry permit, is that okay with you?
Well, there's a constitutional right to those things. The bottom line is we see that in Texas, that because that's happened in Texas, in Denver, there are several issues, and these don't get reported, where actually the criminal was stopped because of those who were there prepared and armed. We tell our people that, of course, we will guard and protect. We have protocols in place to make sure that people don't simply wander in that same measure, but we have to protect those rights. And again, the statistics prove that that's where the safest areas are, and criminals specifically go for soft targets, and that's what we found. So this has been minimized when those in these, whether it's churches, different places where they are allowed to arm themselves, that the gun violence has been reduced and the loss of life has been reduced.
All right, we've come to the end of our time. I'm going to give you each a minute to close. Ms. Hughes, we'll begin with you.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. Thank you to WESH for hosting us this evening. When I think about why I'm running to serve in the Florida House of Representatives, I really think about the people of House District 39. You deserve a representative who will put aside partisan politics and focus on real issues. So I ask, if you remember nothing else this evening, that you remember this. A vote for Tiffany Hughes is a vote to lower housing costs and higher wages. A vote for Tiffany Hughes is a vote to protect our children from gun violence and strengthen our public education. A vote for Tiffany Hughes is a vote to protect a woman's right to access life-saving, reproductive health care. So please join me by visiting tiffanyhughes.vote and by voting on or before Election Day, November 8th, because your vote matters. Thank you.
All right, 1 minute, Mr. Bankson.
All right, again, thank you, Greg, and thank you to WESH too, and for the people to listen. The reason I got involved in this area is because I began to see what was happening when there was not a representative voice, and I began to see what was happening in our community. I've lived here for 30 years, and now I've served for 6 years, so I actually have experience doing these things. It's a nonpartisan position here, and we've had to work together with issues across the board to see things move forward. And so with that experience as well, I've been involved in the Chamber of Commerce for over 18 years on the board, a past president there. The economic issues that we're facing right now are devastating and will get worse. And the policies of the left have created much of these issues. And so for me, we've got to make sure to have common sense, economic, responsible legislation to go forward and protect the right to be free. Let's permit more freedom. And so for me, again, it is representing the people. I love that term because that's exactly what it is. A voice for the people of this region to make sure we have a seat at the table and to make sure that we keep our liberties intact.
All right. Thank you both, Doug Banks and Tiffany Hughes. These are your candidates in State House District 39, which again includes portions of Orange and Seminole County. The election is November 8th. Thank you for watching.